Have you ever been nice to someone, only to realize later they used your kindness against you? That's exactly what happened to my grandpa, Mr. Allen, the sweetest man on our street, when a neighbor decided to take advantage of his kindness. Mr. Allen lives in a quiet suburban neighborhood, white fences, trimmed lawns, and the sound of birds instead of traffic. He's the kind of man who waves at every passing car, helps shovel driveways in winter, and never complains. Not even when he should. But next door live Rick and Linda, a younger couple who think the world spins around them. Loud, flashy, and entitled, the type who always find a loophole in every rule. For months, my grandpa had been quietly living his peaceful routine, watering his garden, feeding the birds, and chatting with neighbors, until one morning, something changed. I still remember the phone call. "Hey, buddy," Grandpa said. "There's a strange car parked in my driveway today. I think it's Rick's." He sounded more confused than angry. I told him, "Maybe it's a mistake, Grandpa. Just ask him nicely." That evening he did exactly that. He walked next door and gently said, "Rick, I think you might have parked over my flower bed by accident." Rick just smiled, leaned against his car, and said, "Oh, don't worry, old man. I'll move it later. It's just for today." But today turned into tomorrow, and tomorrow turned into every day. By the end of the week, Grandpa's bright yellow daffodils, the ones Grandma planted before she passed, were gone, crushed beneath tire marks. Still, Grandpa didn't want to cause trouble. He kept saying, maybe they just need space for a few days. That was Grandpa, too kind for his own good. A few days later, Grandpa finally asked again, "Rick, I really need that space back. My grandson visits and it's hard for him to park." Rick smirked and shrugged. "Actually, we already talked about that, remember? You told us it's okay to park here whenever we want." Grandpa frowned, clearly puzzled. "I don't remember saying that." "Well," Rick said, pretending to sigh, "maybe you just forgot. But we've been parking here for weeks, so, yeah, it's kind of a verbal contract now." A verbal contract? Who even says that to an old man? When Grandpa told me later, I couldn't believe it. He was gentle. Maybe too gentle. But he didn't deserve to be tricked. Rick was clearly twisting his words, using his confusion to his advantage. That night, Grandpa stood by the window for hours watching the car sit in his driveway, its front wheel resting exactly where his flowers used to bloom. When I arrived that weekend, I saw the mess myself. The crushed soil, the muddy tire tracks, and Rick's car parked proudly as if it owned the space. "Unbelievable," I muttered. Grandpa stood beside me holding his watering can, trying to smile. "It's not worth a fight, son," he said. "They're young. Maybe they'll learn." But I could see it in his eyes, that mix of hurt and helplessness, and something in me just snapped. "No, Grandpa, this isn't about flowers anymore. It's about respect." I walked straight to Rick's door with a box of Ferrero Rocher chocolates, my idea of starting polite. When I knocked, no one answered, even though I could clearly hear their TV. I knocked again. After a long pause, the door opened barely an inch. Linda peeked out and barked, "We're not interested in whatever you're selling." Then she slammed the door. I stood there stunned. Selling? I wasn't even holding a flyer. So I called through the door, "I'm Mr. Allen's grandson. We need to talk about your car." Nothing. Silence. For the next few hours, I kept glancing out Grandpa's front window, hoping to catch Rick or Linda coming out. But they stayed inside, pretending we didn't exist. 2 days later, I finally caught Rick by chance. We both stepped out of our houses at the same time. He froze for a second, realizing his car was still sitting in our driveway, and tried to turn back inside. Too late. "Rick, hold on a second," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Look, my grandfather's been too nice about this. But the truth is that driveway is private property. He didn't give you permission. He doesn't even remember saying anything like that. Rick gave a fake smile and said, "Well, if he said it once, it counts. That's how verbal agreements work." I wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Rick, he's 78. He's just trying to be friendly, not make a legal deal with you. Rick just shrugged and walked away. No apology, no guilt. Just arrogance. But I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of panic, like he knew he was pushing too far. That night I sat with Grandpa on the porch. He looked tired. "You think I did something wrong, don't you?" he asked quietly. "No, Grandpa. You did nothing wrong," I said. "You were kind. They took advantage. But it's time they learned that kindness isn't weakness." That's when I decided we'd give them a lesson they'd never forget. Not revenge, just truth with a touch of poetic karma. The next morning I went to the local hardware store. I bought small garden poles, bright yellow tape, and a few tiny celebration fireworks, the harmless kind that just sparkle in the air. When I came back, Grandpa chuckled as he watched me work. "What are you up to now, son?" "Just some light decoration," I said with a wink. By evening, the flower bed looked different, bordered by poles and tape that read "Private property, no parking." Behind it, I hid the small fireworks connected to a remote igniter, totally safe, just for show. When Rick came home and saw it, he laughed loudly. "You really think some tape will stop me?" he called out. "It's your driveway, old man, but don't expect me to play along with your little games." Grandpa didn't say a word. He just smiled, the kind of smile that says, "Your time will come." For 2 days, Rick avoided parking there, probably thinking we were serious. But on the third morning, when I left for a quick errand, I saw it again. His shiny blue car sitting right over the tape, crushing it like it was nothing. My heart raced. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about respect, dignity, and teaching a man that arrogance always burns itself out. I looked at Grandpa. He sighed. "You sure about this?" "Positive," I said, gripping the remote in my hand. Rick stepped out of his house whistling, pretending not to notice the wrecked tape. I pressed the button. Pop. Pop, pop! Tiny fireworks burst from the garden poles, bright sparks, colorful smoke crackling right beside his tires. Rick jumped back in shock, shouting, "What the?" Neighbors came out to see the commotion. Grandpa stood calmly on the porch holding his coffee. Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up. The officer stepped out, scanning the scene. The smoke, the car, the mess. He looked at me, then at Rick. "All right, what's going on here?" Rick straightened his shirt, acting confident. "Officer, my neighbor here is causing trouble. We have a verbal contract to use this space, and he's setting off fireworks around my vehicle." The officer raised an eyebrow. "A verbal what?" And right there, with the entire neighborhood watching, the stage was set for the showdown that would expose everything. The street was alive with whispers. Curtains moved. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds. Rick puffed up his chest like a rooster, trying to look innocent in front of the officer. "He set off fireworks near my car," Rick barked. "This old man's crazy and his grandson's helping him." The officer glanced at Grandpa, who stood calm as ever, sipping coffee. "Sir?" the officer asked politely. "Did you place any fireworks near his car?" Grandpa smiled faintly. "Of course not, officer. Those were celebration sparklers for my garden setup. I didn't expect him to park over them." The officer turned toward Rick. "Wait, you parked on his property?" Rick hesitated. "Well, yeah, but he said I could." The officer pulled out a small notepad. "Do you have any written permission?" Rick's jaw tightened. "No, but he said it verbally." The officer raised a brow. "So no proof at all?" The crowd started to snicker. One of the older ladies whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "A verbal contract. That's a new one." Rick's face turned red. He stammered, "You people don't get it. He's just trying to make me look bad." But the damage was done. His confident mask started to crack. That moment, the first spark of karma had ignited. The officer calmly said, "Sir, this driveway is legally marked as Mr. Allen's property. If you park here again, we'll have to ticket or tow your vehicle." Rick tried to argue, but the officer cut him short. End of discussion. "Move the car." Everyone watched as Rick awkwardly climbed into his vehicle, trying to act unbothered. He reversed too fast, bumping the curb on his own side. A few neighbors chuckled. As the patrol car drove off, Grandpa finally turned to me with that quiet smile. "See, son, sometimes truth just needs a little spark." I laughed. "Yeah, Grandpa. But knowing him, this isn't over yet." And I was right. For 2 days, everything was peaceful. Rick didn't park in our driveway. He didn't even look our way. But behind closed doors, his anger was boiling. He couldn't stand being humiliated, not in front of the entire neighborhood. One night I saw him through the blinds talking to his friend near the fence. He was holding something small, metallic, looked like leftover fireworks from the 4th of July. I heard him mutter, "Let's see how he likes fireworks near his flowers." My stomach dropped. He was planning something stupid. The next evening it happened. Just after sunset, the neighborhood was quiet. Grandpa was watching TV and I was helping him water the plants when I smelled something, faint but sharp, like burnt powder. Then, I saw it. Rick and his friend sneaking near the side fence with a box of fireworks. They were laughing softly, whispering like schoolboys. I whispered to Grandpa, "Stay inside, Grandpa. I'll handle this." But Grandpa shook his head. "No, son. Let him dig his own hole." We both watched silently from behind the curtain. Rick placed a small pack of fireworks near our flower bed, pointing it toward the porch. Then, smirking, he struck the lighter. "Enjoy the show, old man," he muttered. He didn't notice one thing: the wind. A soft gust blew through the yard, carrying sparks across his fence line, right toward the wooden shed behind his house. The first firework went off, bright and loud, sending sparks flying everywhere. Rick laughed, cheering like a fool. Then suddenly, whoosh! A spark caught on something dry, maybe old paint, maybe grass, and within seconds a small flame began licking up the side of his shed. Rick froze. His laughter stopped. His friend shouted, "Dude! It's spreading! Get water! Get water!" Rick yelled, panic flooding his voice, but it was too late. The fire spread fast, bright orange flames dancing against the night sky. Neighbors ran out with buckets. Someone called 911. And there, standing on his porch, Grandpa just watched. Calm, almost sad. "That's the problem with fireworks," he said softly. "You never know where the sparks will land." Within minutes, the fire truck arrived. The firefighters doused the flames before it reached the house, but the shed was gone, burned to black. As the smoke cleared, the officer from earlier showed up again, the same one who'd warned Rick. He surveyed the scene and said flatly, "Didn't I just warn you about fireworks, sir?" Rick's voice trembled. "It wasn't me. I was just—" The officer cut him off. "We found fireworks debris on your side of the property. You're lucky no one got hurt. You'll be getting a fine." Rick just stood there, covered in soot, staring at his burned shed. His arrogance, his fake smile, his verbal contract, and all gone up in smoke. Grandpa walked up to him slowly and said in his calm, fatherly tone, "You know, Rick, I really hope you learned something from this. Kindness isn't weakness, but taking advantage of it, that always burns back." Rick didn't say a word. He just turned and walked inside, his head down. A few weeks later, things were back to normal. Rick and Linda avoided us completely. No waves, no fake smiles. Their driveway was mysteriously always empty now. Grandpa's garden started to bloom again. The yellow daffodils, the ones Grandma planted, and were finally coming back to life. I asked him one morning, "You think Rick learned his lesson?" Grandpa chuckled softly. "Maybe, maybe not. But the universe always handles these things. You don't need revenge, just patience. He looked toward Rick's yard where the blackened outline of the old shed still stood. A silent reminder of what arrogance can cost. Sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness. They think they can lie, cheat, and twist words because good people won't fight back. But here's the truth. The quiet ones, they don't need to scream. Because when karma speaks, it speaks loud enough for everyone to hear. If you enjoyed this story of real-life karma, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because on this channel, every week we share true stories where justice finds its way home. Tell us in the comments, have you ever seen karma come full circle like this?